The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before me, dimly lit by the afternoon sun filtering through the windows at the far end. The school day had just ended, and most students had already rushed out, eager to embrace their freedom. But I lingered, my fingers tracing the edges of my textbook as I pretended to organize my locker. The walls around me were plastered with vibrant posters announcing upcoming events, the winter formal, basketball tryouts, and the drama club's latest production. The distant sound of laughter echoed from somewhere in the building, probably the drama students rehearsing in the auditorium. My heart was pounding so loudly, I was certain anyone passing by could hear it. I wasn't usually the type to dawdle after school. I typically rushed home, eager to escape the social battlefield that high school often felt like. But today was different. I knew he had basketball practice, and this hallway was his inevitable path. I had been stealing glances at him for weeks now, feeling something I couldn't quite name, or perhaps something I was afraid to name. Alex Chun had transferred to our school just 3 months ago, but he had already carved out a space for himself. He wasn't exactly popular in the traditional sense, but people gravitated toward him. He had this quiet confidence that made him stand out. His dark hair always fell perfectly across his forehead, and when he smiled, tiny dimples appeared on his cheeks. But it wasn't just his appearance that drew me in. It was the way he listened when people spoke, the way he defended a freshman who was being bullied in the cafeteria, the way he seemed completely comfortable in his own skin. We shared AP literature together, and he sat 2 rows ahead of me. I spent more time studying the back of his head than I did analyzing Shakespearean sonnets. Sometimes, when he turned to pass papers back, our eyes would meet, and I'd quickly look away, heat rising to my cheeks. I told myself it was nothing, just admiration for a fellow student who seemed to have it all figured out. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I had never really questioned my sexuality before Alex arrived. I had dated girls. Well, 2 to be exact. But those relationships had fizzled out quickly. I had chalked it up to not finding the right person yet. But now I wondered if there was more to it. The way my stomach flipped when Alex walked into a room was unlike anything I had experienced before. It terrified me and thrilled me all at once. Growing up in a small town hadn't exactly provided me with the most open-minded environment. My parents weren't overtly homophobic, but they made comments sometimes, jokes about those people, or remarks about how unnatural certain lifestyles were. I had internalized more of that than I cared to admit. The thought of being attracted to another guy made me feel like I was doing something wrong, like I was betraying some unspoken expectation. But then there were moments when Alex and I would talk after class about a book we both loved, or when he would laugh at something I said, and his entire face would light up. That made all those fears seem insignificant. In those moments, all I could think about was how much I wanted to be closer to him, how much I wanted to know everything about him. Over the past few weeks, our interactions had shifted. What started as casual classroom conversations had evolved into something that felt intentional. He would wait for me after class, walking with me to my next period even though it took him out of his way. When we talked, he would stand just a little too close, his arm occasionally brushing against mine. Once, when I was explaining a concept from our literature class, he looked at me with such intensity that I completely lost my train of thought. He had smiled then, a knowing smile that suggested he understood exactly what effect he had on me. There were the shared glances across crowded rooms, the way his hand would linger when he passed me something, the text messages that stretched late into the night. We talked about everything, our favorite books, our dreams for the future, our fears about not measuring up. He told me about the pressure he felt from his parents to be perfect, and I shared my anxieties about never quite finding where I belonged. With each conversation, the space between us seemed to shrink, charged with something unspoken but increasingly undeniable. Just yesterday, we had been working on a group project in the library. Our knees touched under the table, and neither of us moved away. When our eyes met, he held my gaze for a beat too long, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. There was a question in his eyes, a question I wasn't sure I was ready to answer. And now here I was, lingering in an empty hallway, hoping for another moment like that one. I closed my locker, the metallic clang echoing through the corridor. I should go home, I thought. This was ridiculous. I was setting myself up for disappointment, or worse, humiliation. What if I had misread everything? What if? Hey. His voice cut through my thoughts, and I nearly dropped my textbook. Alex stood a few feet away, his gym bag slung over his shoulder. He was wearing a simple white t-shirt and basketball shorts, his hair slightly damp as if he had just splashed water on his face. I thought that might be you. Hi. I managed, my voice embarrassingly high. I cleared my throat. Practice canceled? He shook his head, moving closer. No, I just told Coach I wasn't feeling well. Thought I might catch you before you left. He was standing right in front of me now, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woodsy and subtle. You were looking for me? My heart was racing so fast I felt lightheaded. I've been looking for you all day, he said, his voice dropping slightly. You disappeared after lit class. I had a meeting with my counselor, I explained, though I wasn't sure why I felt the need to justify my absence. College applications and all that. He nodded, but his eyes never left mine. There was an intensity in his gaze that made me feel both exposed and exhilarated. So, have you thought any more about what we talked about yesterday? Yesterday, in the library, we had been discussing the theme of forbidden love in Romeo and Juliet, and somehow the conversation had shifted to our own experiences. I had admitted that I had never been in love, not really, and he had asked me if I thought I would recognize it if I felt it. The question had hung between us, loaded with subtext. I have, I said, surprised by my own honesty. I haven't stopped thinking about it, actually. Something shifted in his expression, relief, maybe, or anticipation. He took another step closer, and I instinctively backed up, feeling the cool surface of the wall-length mirror behind me. The mirror lined the hallway outside the dance studio, reflecting our figures in the dim afternoon light. And, he prompted, his voice barely above a whisper now. He was so close that I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, the slight stubble on his chin. My mind was racing, thoughts colliding like cars in a pileup. This was the moment, wasn't it? The moment where I had to decide who I was, what I wanted. The fear was still there, the fear of what this meant, of what others would think, of how this would change everything. But alongside it was something stronger, a desire to be honest, to be brave, to reach for what I truly wanted. I started, my voice shaky. I think I'm feeling something I've never felt before. And it scares me, but in a good way. Like standing at the edge of something amazing and terrifying all at once. His lips curved into a small smile, and he placed one hand on the mirror beside my head, effectively boxing me in. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, the slight rise and fall of his chest as he breathed. I know exactly what you mean, he said. His free hand came up to my face, his thumb gently tracing my cheekbone. The touch sent electricity through my entire body. I've never done this before either, you know. Been with a guy? But there's something about you that makes everything else seem insignificant. My breath caught in my throat. So he had been feeling it too. This pull, this connection. I wasn't alone in this. The realization was like a weight lifting from my shoulders. What are we doing, Alex? I whispered, though I knew exactly what was happening. I just needed to hear him say it, to confirm that this wasn't all in my head. What we should have done weeks ago, he replied. And then he was leaning in, his eyes asking permission even as his body made his intentions clear. I gave the slightest nod, and that was all he needed. He closed the distance between us, pressing me gently against the mirror as his lips found mine. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if he was giving me a chance to pull away. But when I didn't, when instead I found myself responding, my hands moving to his waist, it deepened into something more urgent, more certain. The world around us disappeared. I was aware only of the sensation of his lips against mine, the warmth of his body, the slight pressure of the mirror against my back. His hand moved from my face to the back of my neck, pulling me closer. I could taste mint on his breath, feel the slight roughness of his stubble against my skin. It was nothing like kissing a girl. It was firmer, more insistent, and infinitely more right. In that moment, all the questions and doubts that had been plaguing me seemed to dissolve. This was who I was. This was what I wanted. The realization washed over me like a wave, bringing with it a sense of clarity I had never experienced before. When we finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. His eyes searched my face, looking for any sign of regret or discomfort. But all I felt was a profound sense of rightness, of coming home to a place I hadn't known I was searching for. Wow, he breathed, a smile spreading across his face. Yeah, I agreed, unable to find words adequate to describe what had just happened. I was grinning too, feeling lighter than I had in months. It really was. He stepped back slightly, giving me space, though his hand remained on my shoulder. Are you okay? With all of this, I mean. It was a loaded question. Was I okay with what this meant for my identity, for my future? Was I okay with the challenges we would inevitably face? But looking at him, at the hope and vulnerability in his eyes, I knew there was only one answer. I'm more than okay, I said. I think I'm happy. Really happy. The relief in his expression was palpable. Me too, he said, squeezing my shoulder gently. So what happens now? It was a good question. We were standing in the hallway of our high school, having just crossed a threshold there was no going back from. The real world would come crashing back and soon enough, with all its complexities and judgments. I don't know, I admitted. This is all new territory for me, but I know I want to figure it out. With you. He nodded, his expression turning serious. It might not be easy. People might not understand. I know, I said, thinking of my parents, my friends, the small-minded whispers that would inevitably follow us. But I think it's worth it. Don't you? His answer was to kiss me again, softer this time, but no less meaningful. When he pulled back, he was smiling. Definitely worth it. We left the school together, walking side by side, our hands occasionally brushing against each other. We didn't hold hands. We weren't quite ready for that level of public declaration. But there was a new understanding between us, a shared secret that bound us together. In the days that followed, we navigated our new relationship with a mixture of excitement and caution. We found moments of privacy, in empty classrooms, in the back corner of the library, in his car parked at the lookout point overlooking the town. Each kiss, each touch, each whispered conversation helped solidify what we were to each other. It wasn't just physical attraction. It was a deep connection that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. At school, we were careful. We sat together at lunch, laughed at each other's jokes, walked to classes together, all things that could be interpreted as simple friendship. But there were moments when our guard would slip, a lingering look, a touch that lasted too long, a smile that contained too much affection to be purely platonic. People began to notice, to whisper. Some were supportive, offering knowing smiles or words of encouragement. Others were less kind, with snide remarks or suddenly averted gazes. The first real test came when Jason, one of Alex's basketball teammates, cornered him in the locker room. I wasn't there, but Alex told me about it later, his voice tight with controlled anger. He asked if the rumors were true. Alex said as we sat in his car, parked in the empty lot behind the community center. If I was fucking the new kid, as he so eloquently put it. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I wanted to punch him, but instead, I just asked him why he cared so much about my personal life. I told him that who I date is none of his business, but that yes, you and I are together, and if he had a problem with that, he could take it up with Coach when I explained why I gave him a black eye. I reached over and took his hand, marveling at his courage. What did he say? Alex's expression softened as he looked at me. He backed off, said it was whatever, and that he didn't care who I banged as long as I could still play ball. He rolled his eyes. Not exactly a rainbow flag of support, but I'll take it. I squeezed his hand, feeling a mixture of pride and fear. Are you worried about the rest of the team finding out? He was quiet for a moment, considering. A little, he admitted. But I'm more worried about my parents. They have these expectations for me. College, career, marriage, grandkids. The whole traditional package. I don't know how they'll react when they realize that's not exactly the path I'm on. I understood his fear all too well. My own parents remained oblivious to the changes in my life, though I suspected my mother had her suspicions. She had asked about that nice chin boy a few too many times, her tone carefully neutral. We'll figure it out, I promised, though I wasn't entirely sure how. We don't have to tell everyone everything right away. We can take our time. He nodded, bringing my hand to his lips. One day at a time, he agreed. And that's how we proceeded. One day at a time, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. We had our first official date at a restaurant in the next town over, where nobody knew us. We shared our first, I love you, during a late-night phone call, the words slipping out naturally, inevitably. We fought for the first time when I got jealous seeing him talking to his ex-girlfriend, and made up hours later with tearful apologies and promises to communicate better. The milestone I dreaded most was coming out to my parents. I put it off for weeks, then months, finding excuses to delay the inevitable. But as prom approached and Alex and I discussed whether we would attend together, I knew I couldn't hide anymore. I chose a Sunday evening, after dinner, when the house was quiet and my parents were relaxed. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit on them as I told them I needed to talk about something important. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice barely steady. "I've been wanting to tell you something for a while now. It's about me, and it's also about Alex." I took a deep breath, feeling like I was about to jump off a cliff. Alex isn't just my friend. He's my boyfriend. We've been dating for a few months now. The silence that followed felt eternal. My mother's expression was unreadable, while my father's face had gone completely still. I rushed to fill the void, words tumbling out in a desperate attempt to make them understand. "I know this might be a shock, and I know it's not what you expected from me. But being with Alex makes me happy, happier than I've ever been. He's kind and smart, and he cares about me. And I love him." My voice broke on the last words, emotion overwhelming me. My mother was the first to respond. She reached across the table and took my hand, her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, honey," she said softly. "I had a feeling. A mother knows these things." My father was quieter, his brow furrowed in thought. "This is a lot to process," he finally said. "I won't pretend I understand completely, or that this is what I would have chosen for you. But you're my son, and I love you. That doesn't change." Relief washed over me so intensely that I started to cry. They weren't perfect responses, but they were far better than what I had feared. My mother hugged me tightly, whispering that she was proud of my courage. My father awkwardly patted my back, then surprised me by asking when they could properly meet Alex, not as my friend, but as my boyfriend. When I told Alex about it later that night, he was overjoyed for me, though I could see the envy in his eyes. His own coming out to his parents had been more difficult. His father had barely spoken to him for weeks, while his mother alternated between tears and attempts to set him up with daughters of family friends. But even they were slowly coming around, especially after meeting me and seeing how happy their son was. Prom night arrived, and after much discussion, Alex and I decided to attend together, openly as a couple. We wore matching boutonnieres and held hands as we entered the decorated gymnasium. There were stares and whispers, of course, but also high-fives from friends and supportive smiles from a few teachers. When the DJ played a slow song, Alex led me to the dance floor without hesitation, pulling me close as we swayed to the music. "Are you okay?" he murmured in my ear, aware of the eyes on us. "We can step outside if this is too much." I tightened my arms around his neck, looking into the eyes that had captivated me from the first moment. "I'm exactly where I want to be," I told him truthfully. As the school year drew to a close, we faced the reality of what came next. Alex had been accepted to UCLA, while I was heading to NYU, thousands of miles apart. We spent countless hours discussing what it meant for us, whether we should try to make it work long distance or take a break. "I don't want to hold you back," Alex said one evening as we sat on the hood of his car, watching the sunset from our favorite lookout point. "College is supposed to be about discovering yourself, having new experiences. You're not holding me back," I argued. "You're the one who helped me find myself in the first place." In the end, we decided to stay together, committing to regular video calls and visits during breaks. It wouldn't be easy, but what part of our journey had been? From that first kiss in the hallway to now, we had faced each challenge together, growing stronger with each obstacle overcome. The night before I left for New York, we returned to the school, sneaking in through a door that the janitor always left unlocked. The hallway where it all began was dark and silent, the mirror reflecting the moonlight that streamed through the windows. Alex pulled me against him, backing me into the same spot where we had shared our first kiss. "Remember this?" he asked, his voice soft in the darkness. "How could I forget?" I replied, wrapping my arms around his neck. It was the moment everything changed. He kissed me then, with all the passion and tenderness that had characterized our relationship from the beginning. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "No matter what happens, no matter how far apart we are, I will always be grateful for that moment, for finding the courage to kiss you." I smiled, feeling the same rush of emotion I had felt that first day. "Me too," I whispered. It was the beginning of us understanding who we really are. And it was true. That kiss against the mirror hadn't just been the start of our relationship. It had been the beginning of my journey to self-acceptance, to embracing all parts of myself without fear or shame. It had been the catalyst for growth, for change, for becoming the person I was meant to be. As we left the hallway hand in hand, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, distance, disapproval, doubt, we would face them together, with the same courage and honesty that had brought us to this point. Because some connections are worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth cherishing. And what Alex and I had found in each other, in that seemingly ordinary hallway on that seemingly ordinary day, was nothing short of extraordinary. The journey wouldn't always be easy, but looking at him now, his face illuminated by moonlight and his eyes filled with love, I knew with absolute certainty that it would always be worth it. Total _char_count, 18,772.